I am separating and I want to keep the family home. It's what we're talking about today in the East Central Business Show. I'm John Naylor, joined by a resident expert, mortgage broker, Laura Sillano.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now, is this advice?
No. It's never advice.
Okay.
There's a disclaimer at the end.
That's right. But we're going to dig in and have a conversation about this issue of separation and keeping the family home. I've met with that situation once upon a time and we end up selling the property. But obviously that doesn't suit everyone, does it?
No. So that, it's separations can be a really, really emotional time for people. It's a difficult situation to be in for most people who do separate. So Okay. So what's the sort of things that people need to talk about or consider when it comes to separation in the family home? So when people are separating and they've got an asset base that is joint, that they've built up over their married life, and they need to go in their separate ways, there needs to be decisions around what's going to happen with that asset base. And one of the things we've helped a number of clients transition from being in their married life to actually separating to be able to move forward separately. Depending on what they want to do, we can support them through that process. So one of the things where we've helped a number of women who've separated is that they actually want to buy the family home.
Oh, okay.
Because they want to, and they've considered whether they want to just sell the home and then go buy something different, but they've decided that they actually want to stay in that home because it provides stability for their children.
Or close to the school,
all of those kind of things. So for whatever reason, they've decided to stay in the family home. But when they purchased that home, it was purchased jointly. And it was purchased with two incomes, and it was purchased with both parties on title. And so what they need to do is extract those parties out so that each person can go on their way. And often there's a settlement, one of the things that needs to happen is working out what's going to happen with the assets between each party. And so that comes down to, if one person wants to keep the family home, then often they'll need to pay out the ex-partner a sum of money to come off title. Sure. So we've helped a number of people obtain the funding to actually do that and then to actually retain the family home.
Well, obviously there's normally, and even investment properties is another part of the story here too, or investments and that sort of thing. In that picture, there's a fairly complicated thing that's not even just your domain. It's financial planning, we've had Helen Baker on the show talking about that sort of thing, the family law issues, and obviously accountants and capital gains tax. There's quite a lot to consider. That you got to put the emotions aside and deal with the matters at hand.
That's it. And there's a couple of things there. One is that, there's a few issues. I'm going to talk about each one as I see from what you just said.
Yeah, go for it.
The first one is that the more complex your joint situation is, probably the more people you're going to need to have involved to enable you to separate it out. So say, for example, if you've got a house and multiple investment properties and maybe a business or something like that, then you're going to need to come up with an agreement which caters for all of that, and you're probably going to need somebody who's got a level of experience in separating out that level of complexity. So you're probably going to want to have a family lawyer who you each have, potentially an accountant who you each have to be able to deal with the accountancy questions around the sale of assets or investment property assets, as well as then potentially a financial planner as well. And then you're each going to need your own mortgage broker to help you actually finalise anything that you're going to try and keep. So the more complex your situation, the more likely that you're going to need a higher level of support. The second thing out of what you just said has just gone out of my brain.
Well, let's talk about stamp duty and that sort of thing, because even when the conveyancing comes out, there's a little nuance in terms of the way the titles transfer as well, is there not?
Yeah, so that's really a solicitor's question. My understanding from
it needs to be done right though.
Yeah. my understanding from having worked with several people who have separated is that the stamp duty that would be payable on the family home when it's transferred from a joint party to just a single person is that there's usually an exemption that can be applied for that stamp duty, so that the spouse who's taking on the property doesn't have to pay the stamp duty twice, because it has already been paid. It's due to a marital split that the asset is being sold, so it's not really a sale.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's something that they need to talk with their financial planner about.
Yeah, and there's a friend of mine even got stung in a new relationship with a partner where there's some capital gains issues came about with the sale of properties from the prior marriage and stuff like that.
So that's why I was saying the more complex your affairs, bring on other people, because if you've got investment properties and you need to sell down the asset, then you're going to need to know what your tax position on the sale of that asset is. And that really, I think, needs to be considered in the split before you've split.
Yeah.
You know, because, and that is an accountancy question.
Yeah, sure.
So having clarity around what the situation is going to be at the end, once you've separated everything out, that's what the lender's looking for, to enable them to assess your capacity by yourself. Because often when you've built a portfolio or you've got common assets, you've acquired those assets jointly. And what you're wanting to do when you separate is you're wanting to move on in parts individually. And so often combined, people are often stronger combined than they are individually.
Fair enough.
Yep. And that's something that to find out your position, you actually probably need to have your team around you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, how about the other thing that's come to mind just while we've been talking is, how about the long holiday you should have and the retail therapy that you need in terms of like getting over the emotional? Nothing better to go on a holiday and live large on the credit card. I not personally, but I've seen it done.
That's probably, that's something in the separation journey. It can be really, as much as possible, we'd like to try to keep the separation negotiation amicable, because you really do need to work together to get to a point where you can come up with an agreement as to who's going where. Sometimes that's just simply not possible.
Right.
But the only thing that as a separating party you have control over is what you do. And there are times when you're in that process, from what we've seen from other clients who've gone through it, where they're so frustrated by the experience that they start doing things to try and make themselves feel better.
Oh, okay.
Say, for example, retail therapy or you know, booking a holiday or whatever those things might be, the things that you were just talking about. And so you just need to be careful with that kind of, with that way of dealing with the emotional stuff that you're going through, because it can impact on your ability to actually financially separate and move forward for real. So if you're going to do stuff like that, what I would say is work with your team and, you know, build that relationship so that you've got that level of support there to keep you on track until it's actually finalised. Yeah. You know, so it may be that you can actually go and do that holiday and it doesn't jeopardise anything that you want to do. It may be that holiday tips you over. Say, for example, if you've borrowed for it, if it tips you over your ability to retain the house, that's something you probably want to discuss prior to actually doing it. Yeah, there you go. And that's obviously what's priorities in your life, you know. I mean, for me, the priorities that I got around to when I had a divorce was not keeping houses so much, but I still bought investment properties, you know. Yeah. And then went sailing. But anyway, that's another story. We're out of time on this episode of the East Central Business Show. How do people get some Laura Sillano? You can contact me on 0422 320 497, or you can also email through to the office, which is home@podfinancial.com.au. Okay, fabulous. Right out of time on this episode. We'll see you next time.